Thank you for being here. I'm super excited. As always, one of my favorite things, is to help leaders rock their teams, make their big impact in the world. And I want to start by congratulating you for being here. Look, you've made a choice to ignite change yourself, and that's going to be the topic for today. And change is not easy. But congratulations on being ready to replace, eliminate, and conquer the challenges that you've been experiencing. Because the reality is, for you to make your biggest, boldest impact in the world, you need a productive team. You need them in line, working, aligned towards your big mission, your goals. And that's what I'm here to help you do. So I want you to breathe in the possibility as you take in this information, and then breathe out the doubt that has you feeling like there's nothing you can do. Your team's never going to get it. And let me just quickly check and make sure that we're live and everything's good. I'm still trying to see it on my phone here. There it is. Okay, so that I can check your comments. All right. So I want you to, again, breathe in that possibility, breathe out the doubt. I know that you've tried a lot of things to get your team aligned and more productive, and it can lead to some frustration. But I can tell you that I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and I've had the privilege to walk aside leaders just like you. And so often they are closer than they can even imagine to transforming their teams. It's like that old saying, I don't know if it's a saying, but that we're often the most frustrated when we're just 3 feet from the gold. And like I said, I've seen that so many times. I actually have a former client in the group, and I'm not going to call him out, but maybe I'll get him to share in the group soon. But when I first met him, he was ready to throw in the towel. He was so frustrated with everything going on in his team. And it just felt easier to give up. And I think it was within about 3 months that we had transformed that team. He was back on fire for all the wonderful work that he was doing in his business. And he's just one example who happens to be in the group. There are tons and tons of these examples that I could share over the course of almost 30 years. So I say all that to give you some hope. Again, that possibility. So, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kirsten Ross. I'm an author, a speaker, a podcast host, and I'm the CEO of Focus Forward Coaching. And we help leaders defeat the drama so they can 4x their productivity, wow their customers, you might call them clients or patients, but wow the people that you serve, improve their bottom line with simple, actionable strategies, systems, and mindset shifts. So like I said, a lot is just tweaking a lot of what I share. So I also want to remind you before we get started, remember to mark in your calendars because the 5-day masterclass starts December 9th, and there's going to be 5 solid days of training. I mean, not all day, but an hour each day. And I haven't picked the time yet. I'm seeing how these different times are working for everyone, but do mark that that's when it's going to start. I'm so excited. I mean, these strategies that I'm sharing now are just the bonuses that you guys are getting because you hopped into the group in advance. So, and I will be doing some Q&As also. So get that marked in your calendar. And also just quickly, if I don't have your email yet, make sure that I get that. You can either DM me or go to defeatthedrama.com/group. That'll take you to just a quick opt-in form where you can just give your, it's just your first name and your email, and that's it. I want to make sure that you're getting the announcements for these lives, for the Q&As, and certainly as we head into the 5-day masterclass, there's going to be some bonus materials and the homework, the worksheets that you're going to use for that 5 days. So I really need to make sure that I've got that information from you. Hey, Nicole, Ken. Okay, now I got it. This flipped right so I can see your comments. Okay, they weren't coming across. So I've got a couple people on so far right now. So great. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. All right. So I think that's all the kind of businessy work we have to take care of. So let's dive into the material. Change. No kind of change happening, right? So did you know that they estimate that there are over 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created every single day? Now, I have no idea. I think even if I knew what a quintillion was, I am quite certain that I wouldn't be able to kind of visualize how much data that is. But I think it's safe to say it's a lot, probably more than we can easily take in and understand and focus on. They also estimate that about 1.7 megabytes per person on the earth per second is created. So 1.7 megabytes, that's a little bit easier for us to kind of visualize. We know kind of file sizes and things like that, but that's per person per second. So do you think we're in an era of change perhaps? I think so. I also want you to think back to what our phones were like. Now, for some of us, we're picturing rotary phones that are attached to a wall with the windy, twisty cord, right? Others are saying, oh my gosh, I used to have a flip phone. So think of the change that we've gone through, even with our technology, that we're able to call from anywhere, almost anywhere. And then think about how open we are to change. If I ask you, do you like Android or iPhone? We're always really attached to one or the other, right? Or Coke or Pepsi. See, when I say that, we start thinking, ooh, I only like one of those things. I don't like the other. Here's all the reasons why, right? So we just get locked into life. I actually had a recent situation where I went through a ton of change, and on the scheme of things, it wasn't really that much. When I think of other people and the big moves that they make, but we just moved about 45 minutes away from where we had been living into a new community where I was going to be going to the grocery store and church and meeting new friends and things like that. And so it's been about 4 months. And so I'm a person who's been teaching on change for years and helping people maneuver it. And I always kind of walk the line of like living my life and then paying attention to how I'm dealing with things and lessons learned and what can I share with others. But I was really shocked at how difficult the change was for me. I feel like I'm a pretty flexible person. And it wasn't like I was, overwhelmed. It wasn't this huge emotional thing, but I was tired. It was tiring using my GPS everywhere I went. It was tiring, especially as an efficiency junkie, knowing that when I got to the grocery store, I wasn't going to know where anything was because all the layouts were totally different, and just all those different things. And I still remember the first day that I got somewhere without my navigation, and it was like, whoop, whoop. So I was so excited. And it was like, wow, it's starting to feel like home. Something's familiar. And that's just how we humans are, isn't it? So that's one of the key things I want you to think about as we dive into the strategies I'm going to share to help your teams hurdle the challenges of change. And the first one is that we humans are not designed for change. And I'm sure you've heard about our amygdala. Sometimes we call it the lizard brain. And the whole function of that, which existed, was created to keep us alive in a world that's very different from where we live now, where going off the beaten path might have taken us like off a cliff or into a saber-toothed tiger, or who knows. And so that amygdala, the whole purpose is to keep us stay kind of stagnant, not making change. Don't do anything different. And so that stands in the way. A lot of times it's just innately difficult for us to undergo change. And if we can just kind of embrace that and know that that's just how it's going to be, then even that alone can make change a little easier. So, so the first tip is give grace, but don't accommodate. So, like I said, that amygdala is firing off, and the amygdala isn't saying, hey, just don't change. That part of our brain is coming out with excuses and reasons that feel like fact for why we shouldn't change anything, like why only the status quo is what's right or good. And the safety is there, right? And so it's not going to sound like don't change. It's going to sound like that's never going to work. It's going to be horrendous. It's going to be, awful, whatever. And so when you are leading your team through change, as leaders, we can either decide to be frustrated with everybody whose amygdalas are popping off, or we can have that quick amount of grace, acknowledge it's part of the process for humans undergoing small to big, good to bad change. Our amygdalas just don't like the change. So instead of being frustrated by it as a leader and saying, oh my gosh, these people are driving me crazy, maybe you can stop really quickly and think, part of the process. Now, I'm not trying to turn you into a counselor or have you decide that you need to walk them through and get them to the point where it's totally comfortable for them to change. Because at some point, it's like, woo, woo, train is leaving. Change is happening. But you can have that moment of empathy. I get it. I know it's difficult. From a leadership perspective, that mindset, again, if your expectation is that people are going to just have a tough time with it instead of feeling frustrated by it, easier for you to deal with, especially if you have a larger team that's popping off all over the place with the difficulty with the change. But just expect it. It's just what's going to happen, right? If it's normal and to be expected, more palatable. So for your own kind of mindset, your own sense of calm during what will probably also be challenging for you, just expect that people are going to have some difficulty with it. So again, and then let them know this is just part of change. It's okay. It's okay that you're feeling that way. However, change is coming. Change is happening. I need you on board. I want you a part. You're an important part. So all those kinds of messages that you can bring to them about wanting them as part of the team, but that change is happening. So then the next thing, so the first one is give grace, but don't accommodate. Then I'm going to talk about input. We all know this. Getting people's input increases buy-in towards change. I will never forget the time I walked into, it was a large logistics company that I was working with, and they were undergoing a huge implementation of a very large software system that you would have heard of. And the IT director came to me and he said, can you help me? I am going nuts. These end users in the training as we roll out this software that we've been, this project we've been working on for over a year, are trying to give me all these recommendations and ideas and how they want it designed. And we're way beyond that. Help me. Well, I looked at him and I said, you did give them the opportunity to give some input, right? The answer, no. Wow. What an inopportune time to figure out that you should have done that. So give people the opportunity. Change will be easier if they get a voice. Now, asking for their opinions, I'm going to talk about in a second. You need to appreciate it, and it obligates you to be better with communication down the road. But give them the opportunity. It doesn't obligate you to do everything they ask for. Of course, in a a huge software implementation. You're not going to be able to implement every single end user need. It's not going to 100% model how they're doing their job now, right? Their amygdala is going to need a little bit of discomfort. They're going to have to do some things differently, but certainly from their perspective, there's going to be important information that you can gain from listening. So get their input. The next thing is a key message to veterans. People who have been through similar things, have tons of knowledge, have maybe been in the workforce way longer. Sometimes your experience gets you to from point A to point Z really quickly. You're like, I know what needs to happen. Boom, 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 and we're there. And maybe some of the newer people to the team or the organization don't have the same insights that you do. And sometimes you can go from point A to point Z without kind of bringing them along on that journey. And maybe when they have an idea or share a perspective or an opinion, you might quickly shut it down because you think, well, I know. I've been through this. And it's a tough balancing act because veterans, they want to be valued for their longevity. You know, they have all this experience, this wealth of knowledge to tap into. But at the same time, new people coming in have a new, fresh perspective that is also of value. And if veterans, and you may end up at the point that a veteran is, you know, you might be spot on. But what you want to be very careful of is that you're not shutting down people, silencing their voice, getting them to the point of frustration where they no longer want to share an opinion. If you're immediately jumping in with that's wrong or that's not right or this is better or that's not going to work, they're going to be frustrated. So change will be better if, and it takes a little bit longer, but let's say you're going to go from point A to point Z with whatever the change is going to be. And you're right, because you've been there and you've been through it. Take the little extra time to help them move from their perspective and what they're seeing to what that end goal is. You, with your knowledge and experience and longevity, are bringing to the table. It's kind of a teachable moment for them versus that, oh no, that's not going to work. It's not a time for 100% efficiency. Also, for veterans, I want to say, make sure that your amygdala isn't popping off. What if what they're describing, coming up with this idea, this new inventive something, what if it is a better idea? And your lizard brain is just saying, no, that's not going to work, right? So stop and consider. I see this dynamic a lot. I work a lot with family businesses. And when that second generation comes in, this is a dynamic that plays out a lot. That second generation, they want to make their mark. They've got all these new ideas. They've been to school. Maybe they've had hopefully some outside experience that they're trying to bring into the family business. But then you have the person who they're either the first or the second generation. This is my baby. I've been successful all these years. Why are you saying I'm wrong? Right? All that stuff. So I'll talk to the new people too and say, do the same. Be respectful of each other's ideas. Listen, everyone, we need all people's perspectives and opinions, and everyone has value to bring. And so it's allowing people time to digest and be valued and consider all the possibilities and bring people along. So if you have some new innovative idea that has never been used in an organization, it would represent huge change. Give people who've been there for a while the opportunity to digest it. So from both sides, input, listen. Okay. The next, very important, communication back. Now, is anyone, I want to stop super quick. Are you having any aha moments? Can you guys throw me some thumbs up? Just, I see some people on, which is great, but let me know if, what ahas you have, any questions that are popping up for you as I'm sharing here. But so the third key is, I'll call it communication back. So there's a lot of communication that needs to happen during change. One is just keeping people up to date, like as much as possible. And sometimes, especially when it's huge change, there's a lot to communicate, a lot of moving parts. It's hard to keep everyone in the loop, but do everything in your power to come up with a good communication system that does keep people up to date on what's the latest and greatest, where are things, if there's a delay, why is there a delay? So humans have this tendency, in the absence of fact, we go to the world of assumption and they tend to assume the negative. And if they're not being filled in, they decide that they're leaving me out on purpose. They're trying to get me out of my job, whatever it is. It's never sunshine and butterflies, I always say. So when you are going through change, just communicate, communicate, communicate. I always say in real estate, it's location, location, location. With people and relationships and business, it's communication, communication, communication. So communicate. The other thing is, if you've asked for input, which hopefully you have, communicate appreciation for people taking the time to use their creative problem solving, sharing from their perspectives, their ideas. They've used their energy and been a bit vulnerable sometimes to share. So show appreciation for that. Communicate your appreciation for that for sure. The next thing is that I see that's often missed. That's just a simple tweak. Keep it on your radar. Write it down. Is when decisions are made after you've taken input from multiple people, make sure that part of the communication is why the decisions that were made, why they were made. So for instance, if someone says, hey, I would love to have X, Y, and Z in the new software, or as we roll out this process, here's how I think we should do it. And if decision makers take all that input and make a decision that isn't aligned with what employees have asked for or suggested, communicate back why. Now, you don't need to share all the details, but acknowledge, again, it's another great opportunity to appreciate them taking the time and using their creative resources to share with you. So thank them. Talk about what conversation happened, if you can, around their ideas and why they couldn't be implemented. Or maybe they will be implemented and there's great value, but they can't be implemented yet. Maybe it's being tabled for a period. But if you ask for people's input and it goes into a black hole and their ideas aren't utilized in the end result and they never hear anything back, people don't continue to share perspectives or ideas or problem solve or any of that into a black hole. So please, in your communication strategy, include at least minimal amounts of why you chose what you chose, why you did what you did, why you could or couldn't implement their recommendations. So that IT guy that hadn't asked anybody, man, he had an uphill battle because I'm not sure how you would go back to people and say, here's why we didn't ask you anything. That's way beyond, that's a tough one. So don't let that happen. So hopefully you're not in the midst of some big something. Just make sure there's no questions. Okay. So the next is review and revise. So when change is happening, you know what? Usually the change isn't going to be the final change, right? If we can expect that, again, whenever our expectation is matched with what the experience is probably going to be, it's more palatable. It's easy to deal with. So let everyone know the expectation is, look, you guys, you're right. There are going to be snafus. It is going to be challenging making this change, but we're going to make it. And then we're going to review and revise. And it's okay. And that review and revise phase, again, more opportunity to get input from people. Now they're using the new software or using the new process. Things are implemented, using the new equipment. And you're going to have their experience now, which is a wealth of great information that you can use to just tweak a little bit more. Rarely does that first implementation lead to the final deal. So again, if you go into it, and maybe those initial conversations that you have where people are freaking out that change is coming, you can say, I get it. You know what? That's a normal part. Everyone feels uncomfortable going through change. And the reality is, almost for sure, we're going to have some hiccups. We're going to do our best, right? You still work to do your best to minimize the hiccups, but rarely are there none. And but let them know. But we have a part of this implementation phase that is a review and revise. And so we're expecting to need to make some additional changes. We're expecting to have some challenges with this implementation, but it's okay because we have a process set. So again, it's another opportunity to go to your team, get their input. Now, input to me, and this is part of a culture shift. I've been in companies where we've shifted it once I'm working with them, but where initially it's kind of a whining culture. And you know what's super easy? It's super easy to point out problems. You know what's even easier? Whining about problems. So those are like the lowest common denominators of input from employees. And where employees are engaging in that kind of communication, I always recommend putting it back on them to come up with some solutions. And if I have to come up with a solution in addition to pointing out the problem, I'm not very invested if I'm not willing to put any creative effort into coming up with any kind of alternate ideas. So, so telling employees that review and revise time is coming is another opportunity to emphasize the fact that you're a culture where you're not whining and complaining, but you're solution seekers, I like to call it, problem solvers. And so great opportunity to get feedback from them, tell them to expect it, and their input will be valuable. They will have been utilizing the new information. You've told them to expect it. All is well, right? Checking for some questions. Throw me some thumbs up, you guys. All right. So let me just quickly review. So we've got the first is the give grace, but don't accommodate. So give grace, but don't accommodate. Acknowledge that that's how it is. Change is going to be difficult. A little bit of empathy, but don't turn into a counseling session. I'm not asking you to do that. They need to kind of own their management of their own change, but do give them that little bit of grace. Let them know it's normal. It's okay. Okay. And then the next, input. Input is important. Get their input. And remember, newer people to the organization versus the veterans, everyone appreciate the knowledge, the expertise, the perspectives, the education, all the stuff that each individual brings is of value. So to take the time to allow people to let it sink in, make sure they feel like their opinions are valued. Might be a teachable moment if someone's way off base and what they're recommending doesn't make a lot of sense, but there are ways to do that to kind of help them come to that conclusion without just shutting them down and silencing them, making them feel less than. And then the next is communication back. So as you're implementing whatever it is you're implementing or undergoing change, you're making sure to show appreciation for the input that you've gotten. Keep them up to date on where things are as the change is happening, what's going on. And then as you're making decisions, some of the suggestions that they provided, how is that being utilized in the decision-making process? Why couldn't their idea have been implemented? Maybe it's tabled, maybe it's out, maybe you tweaked it a little bit and this happened instead, but just that they know that you've been a good steward of the ideas that they've shared. And then the next is review and revise. So again, going in, people know We're not expecting it to be perfect. It's okay. Your amygdala is right. There are going to be some challenges. There are going to be some snafus, but it's okay because we're going to implement. We're going to do our best, but we're going to expect some hiccups. But we're going to review then, and we'll be coming back to you, the end user, or the people in the trenches, or get all the different perspectives of those using the new process, the new equipment, the new software, whatever it is. And you'll have another opportunity to give us your valuable input. And input looks like anything other than whining or complaining about it, right? Input looks like being a solution seeker, a problem solver, creative. Input at this point looks like, I want this to be successful, but here are some opportunities. I know this wasn't the intent, but this is where we're at, and here are some ideas that I have for change. So that is your 4 keys to helping your team hurdle the challenges of change. So I'm going to check again one more time to see if I have any questions, and I don't. But thank you so much for hopping on with me today. And if you're going to watch a replay, do pound replay in the comments so that I know that you were there. And again, as always, throw your questions in or comments. Maybe you have some ideas, but let's get the conversation going around change. So until our next strategy session, make it an awesome day. And thanks so much for joining me, guys. And I can't wait to see the bold, beautiful impact that you make in this world. All right, take care.